Sometimes updates come on time. Other times updates come late. Whenever they come, Fragments of Silicon will be there.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. I'm your host, Adam. Joining me, as always, our Galaxy and Petty fan. Let's get to the news. Petty, why don't you start us off this week?
Alrighty, well, it's been fairly eventful, at least just the past couple days for me. Let's see. Yesterday I went to Micro Center for the first time, and I got a new graphics card. A NVIDIA RTX 3050. So, more games I can play for the show.
Provided they are windowed, apparently.
Yeah.
Well, he can still play games to review for the show that aren't windowed. He just can't play them while reviewing them.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, the only thing that fixes that is another monitor, which ain't happening in this current setup.
You opted for the ultra wide.
Yeah. Well, I also didn't have enough outlets for a second monitor, so. And we also now have a new internet provider, T-Mobile. Yay! We have their home 5G thing, so hopefully that's better than who we had before, and then we can go tell our local cable provider to go eat shit. And I got my Digimon deck finally together, so I get to try out X Antibody this weekend, so yay. And I did something horrible to my left knee. I don't know what the hell I did, but...
Well, stop doing horrible things to your knees. You need those.
I know I need those. It also doesn't help when, for some reason, your knee decides to try and buckle back on you when you're walking on flat surfaces. So yeah, that may involve a doctor's visit here in the next few days if it doesn't, sort itself out with some heat and ice and whatnot. And yeah, mostly just been setting things up on the new wireless and kind of existing. So next victim.
Alex?
Not too much interesting around here. There was a car fire at work yesterday when someone was trying to jump the driver of our car. So that was a thing.
Was that the same car that had the gas leak?
Yes, no, that's not the car that. Well, that car was mostly okay afterwards. It was the car that was trying to jump it.
Oh,
caught on fire badly.
I'm not even going to
sure
question how the fuck you pulled that off, but okay.
Probably small error in connecting the cables.
Possibly.
Anyway, that was some excitement.
Air quotes excitement.
Yeah. Well, we all had to leave the building, which is funny because my office is, or the office I work in is on the other side of the building. So I was like, if the car exploded, I probably would have been safer in my office. But if the building caught fire, I would not have been. So
yeah, a little bit of give and take there.
Thankfully, it didn't.
Hooray!
So yeah, other than that, nothing particularly exciting.
Which is probably for the best.
Yes, I would rather have nothing than have had my car catch on fire or something.
Yeah.
Yep. And I guess it's my go. I guess the big thing here is I got my birthday present rather early, mainly because my mother keeps ranting about gas prices and inflation, and she like I don't know what the price of things is going to be, months from now. So she decided to get me shoes now instead of then,
Nifty.
and yeah, it's been about 3 years since I last got shoes, so I was due.
Mm.
See, they are Rockports. Just got them like yesterday, if I'm remembering correctly. So haven't had a whole bunch of time to break them in, but they'll get their rounds, so to speak. On the subject of birthdays, I have to go down for one of my nephew's birthdays on Sunday. I should be back up in time for the show, for the Sunday reviews.
Mm.
And yeah, that's about it for my news this week. So merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Ricardo Barbosa of Hyperblast Games.
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks so
we
much.
seem to be, we seem to be holding together.
Thanks so much for having me here, for an invite. I feel honored to be in your show. It's always a pleasure to talk with, two passionate, I would say, podcasters like yourselves. They've been in the business for quite some years.
Yeah.
And
I'll note there are
it's a pleasure.
3 of us.
3 of us. All right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's fine. Me and Golx have been confused as the same person far too many times.
Yeah.
We don't know why that happens. It just happens.
But thanks for having me, guys.
No problem. Anyway, so how we like to get started is we like to get to know the person behind the games, the studio, and whatnot. And we start by asking this question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
Perfect. Great question, guys. So on a personal level, I mean, I think I probably remember maybe I got out of my mom's belly already with a with a console, because as far as I can remember, I was a little kid. So I'm 45, by the way. So I'm on the Jurassic age already. So I go back far in time. And the first time I got, an experience electronic game was probably one of those, I don't know if you guys recall, but those Game & Watch kind of games, like dual screens, little consoles like Nintendo had, like the Donkey Kong. So that was kind of the predecessor to the first Mario thing. I don't know if you guys ever saw one of those. So I remember playing that, and it was love at first sight. It was an uncle of mine that gave it to me on my birthday, and from that moment on, it just moving on. Playing other games, trying other systems. Go back to systems like the ZX Spectrum. I was born and raised in Portugal, so in the States, it was not a very popular brand, but it was a machine with 48K of RAM, and fantastic games. Still in cassette player. Here, you guys played more like the Commodore 64 and all that sort of era. And then I kind of went to other, like the evolution of the PC era, right, with the 286, 386, 486, Pentiums, so on and so forth. Until, like, I would say, like, the highest moment in gaming for me, it was when I first laid my hands on a Commodore Amiga back in the day. It was like my hail to the king moment, and it was probably the best times in my life where I played the most. And then, of course, all the console generations from Mega Drive, Master System, PlayStation, and all that, up until now. From a personal standpoint, is that one. From gaming, that's kind of I always been a gamer. I really like to play games, but from being a gamer to being a game dev, there's still a kind of huge leap there. But it was kind of it's more of a recent thing. So I would say I decided to start experimenting with creating games, probably around, 3 years now. But I always been my profession. So I'm a software engineer, and I've been working in the computer industry, normally in software development, for more than 20 years now as a software developer. Never in the gaming industry, so more in the web space and mobile space. So I'm a programmer, so the transition to starting making games and code was relatively, familiar to me.
Right.
So I started, like 3 years ago, I picked up Unity and started playing with it. And then recently, like a couple of years ago, I transitioned completely to Unreal, which is the IDE that I'm using. Yep.
Okay. And I suppose we still have yet to address, what was the spark that made you say, I'm going to go full bore into game development?
Yeah, so I do this. Yeah, I do this as a part-time thing. I didn't do like the kamikaze jump. Like forget everything and just jump and do it all like full time. For main reasons, right? For a lot of reasons. First, I'm 45. I have 2 daughters, a family, and I can just not. I have a career in. Also, so I moved 6 years ago from my country to the United States. I'm currently working as an IT director of a software developer company. I manage teams and I do that. So this is more of a passion kind of driven thing. So I never did the full transition, and I don't even know if I will ever do it. But what made me kind of do the click is because I do this when I normally say I do this like if it was a superhero mode where everybody's asleep. I put on my game dev suit and I go in and do my stuff. This is almost like an escape from reality for me, because I've been coding in the enterprise space so much and line of business applications that I'm really, so to speak, a bit tired of that. And I find the gaming, all the stuff related with indie, from creating a character, modeling, the coding piece of it, the structuring a game, all the stuff dealing with sound, dealing with all that's involved into making a game. It's really exciting and kind of unleashes that creativity, bug, so to speak, that I have inside of me. So to answer your question, is that I have this need to get out of my day-to-day routine and unleash a certain creativity that I have that I can really relate to, which is gaming, because it's so, like, the scope is so wide, right, from graphics to music to coding, that I really love to delve into this world and give and just let my imagination drive me.
Okay. So I suppose we can advance to the main subject of tonight, and that is Hottie and the Sausage Factory. Which is
machine.
Sorry.
No problem. No problem.
If it's inventive, if nothing else, like I know my colleagues here were kind of weirded out by the whole premise. I'm not so much, but that's because I've seen games be this kind of weird for decades. Like, I mean, you go back to the golden age of arcades, for example. I mean, Centipede, that's a game where you're a lawn gnome shooting at centipedes and other garden insects. There's a and just all sorts of abstract things from that time.
Definitely.
and the indie scene is no less uncrowded with such ideas. Like not too long ago, we featured a game that had dungeoneering and billiard balls.
Yep.
Yeah, games can be very creative when they want to be, but I suppose that's the catch, isn't it? Like when they want to be. A lot of games don't want to be. But with that in mind, I do have to ask where this came from.
Yeah, great question and great analogy. I totally agree with you. Games are exactly these parallel worlds and universes where you can create whatever comes to mind, and the more the more creative you are. I mean, imagination is unlimited. You can create whatever you want as long as it is fun at the end of the day. To me, was sort of I would say I was doing the normal evolution of game dev, right? Writing prototypes and doing stuff with my third person view character, my first person view, creating, sculpting a humanoid figure and doing all sorts of these most exploited, I would say, explored mechanics of games. And I really wanted to, there was a point where I said, well, I want to really create something different, something that's not a humanoid character. And I'm really a fan of that Sausage Party movie, and and I really got inspired by that. And I said, wow, nobody ever did it. I think it's so funny. So let me see if I can open Blender, sculpt here, model a sausage, and see if I can rig it. And let's see how funny that would be. And then I started, just bringing the character in, giving him some basic controller and movements and stuff, making him jump and whatnot. And then, the idea started popping in my head. I mean, what am I going to do with a sausage? It's just a sausage. Now, what's the story of a sausage? And then there's kind of this crazy idea where I said, how about if sausage would be in a factory production line? And then once the sausage is about to, meet meet his creator, when it's going to get chopped into pieces, how about if the machine jammed at that moment and just gave life to the sausage would go inside the machine, and the machine, instead of being, black corridors with wires all over, could be some sort of imaginary world filled with lots of crazy stuff like graveyards, forests and things like that. And I said, well, that might sound interesting. And then I started experimenting with it and posting a lot of it on Twitter. And suddenly, I was just doing this for fun, and my Twitter account exploded. And I went from 10 followers to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. It's just the reaction of the public was really, really nice, because what you said is like, what the heck, right? This is like, what the F is this? Is just a sausage here in the middle, because I'm very visual, and I like to kind of, imagine all the games that I really like are really visually impacting. So I like to, give attention to detail, to world sculpting, and I try to have good colors, good environments, good design, essentially. And then sometimes people look, oh, this looks so interesting, and then they look at the characters like, what the heck, right? It's just a sausage here in the middle of nowhere. But that's kind of the key element to it. Maybe if it was something that was expected, like a knight or a humanoid figure of some sort, people say, okay, it's nice, it's cool. But because it's a sausage, it's like that short circuits your mind in a sense. And I've been iterating this idea now for almost a year in a very relaxed way. And mainly that's it. That's just the game that I decided to commit to, because it's before that, and a lot of game devs, if they are listening to this, they will relate to this, because there's a transition of the commitment from the prototype to the commitment. And this is the game that I said, okay, it's starting to have a good response from the public, from my peers, from all around, people saying, wow, what a cool idea, wow, this looks great, wow, great mechanic. And I said, why, maybe this is a signal to me, a sign just saying, this is probably the game you should go. And that's when I started to take things more seriously and committed, and decided on continuing with the crazy idea of a sausage.
Well, I suppose that beckons the question, have you made like a formal design document?
Yeah, so great question. So I started off with a very, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but there's actually a technique called improvisational game design. This is something that it's not, if you go to the books, this is like if you have the Bible or something like that, this is probably the pages that someone torn off of the Bible so that nobody sees them, but they exist. And there are games, if you search online for improvisational game design, there's a game that won several awards that did this sort of iteration. So when I started, I did a lot of improvisational game design because I was alone, I had no commitments, I was experimenting, and, I was just going with the flow. In a commitment mode, but going with the flow. But there's a point in time where if you want to go somewhere in terms of gaming, because there's so many tasks, so many things you need to do, you got to get organized. So I started to organize myself, and I started to creating a simple game design document. It's not like 50, 60, 70 or 100 pages. Sometimes you just need 10 pages or even less, or there's one pager as well. So I have that, and especially more recently where I started collaborating with a designer from Spain that goes by the handle of Zizi on Twitter. I really need to get that organized because I need to, distribute the tasks between me and her. And I really need to have some sort of guidance where we are, and it needs to be more of a professional approach rather than just the pure hobby, or else it's going to be chaos. So to answer your question, yes, currently I have a game design document.
Okay. And I suppose another question, because the footage that we're seeing here isn't actually the game, as I understand it. It's more a representation of what the game could be.
Yeah.
And so what state of development or production is Haughty right now?
Yeah, it's still in so the first iterations of the game, I would say the first 6 months is the result of that video that you have there, where I was kind of experimenting with the idea of Audi being inside a machine and exploring these worlds. And I was also kind of seeing the reaction from the public, and seeing how far could I go with this. After a while, after you get 6 months of this iteration, I started to feel a bit empty on the idea, and because initially the game was thought to be more of an action platformer game, where inside of these worlds you would have to just do more of a platform approach. But then as the game started to evolve, other ideas started popping to my head, and I just wanted to change it more to an action adventure game. That's when things kind of twisted around. And in the meantime, I also met, like I said, Zizi, and we started iterating on the ideas of not making so much of a platformer, but making more of a story kind of game, still with beautiful worlds, but more of a story-driven adventure with tons of action. I don't want the game to be boring, just I want it to be also action as fights and all that, but also has a story behind it. And that's when things kind of went back a little. So I had to go just give some steps back so that I organize myself better and move forward. So I would say it's very in its early stage of development. I have a completed, a finished level, so to speak. The first level is finished. I'm in the process of finishing the second level of the game, the second world, which is called A Bumpy Road to Sausageville. And once I have those two levels completed, which I hope, maybe in a couple months or so, I'll be able to release, something, a pre-alpha for some, play testing and feedback. So I would say the game is still in a very, very, very early age, and it's mainly because it's, like I said, it's a part-time thing. It's my hobby. It's solo dev, and it goes slow. It goes steady but goes slow, and and quite frankly, I prefer it to be this way. And even if it takes me like 3.5 years or 10,000 hours of work, but at the end of that journey, I look back and say, okay, here's something that I'm proud of, that I'm not depending financially of, so I can put all my efforts, invest all the time that I have with no pressure. But people like it. I'm proud of the work that I did, and not just rush it and do something just for the money or whatever. Because quite frankly, it's not what drives me. And on my personal experiences in situation, it's an advantage, not feeling pressure that I have to make money for the game and push it forward. So it's really in its early stages, to answer your question.
Right. That is a good attitude to have, especially that 3-year thing. We have had a distressing amount of people on the show who have spent 3 or 5 or that amount of years on a single game. Because, building games as a solo dev or a small team is hard.
Ooh.
I mean, I keep saying this, but it keeps being true. I have yet to meet the person that has said, game dev, that was easy. That was easier than I expected. Never happened. I do not expect that to ever happen. Anyway, now you mentioned that you shifted this from a platforming title to an action adventure title. Does that mean more combat?
First of all, it means it's going to have combat. Yeah. So the idea is the story of the game, very quickly is like Hottie is not. Initially, I said it was in a sausage machine, goes inside and explores the interiors in a more platformer way. Now I shift the story. It is not in a sausage machine anywhere. So it's just a nomad sausage that lives in a sausage world where all its inhabitants are sausages. So there's different characters there's farmers sausages, there's doctors sausages, there's a lot of characters there. It's like a village. So, and Hottie is a nomad sausage that is in search for a better life in a city called Sausageville. So the adventure part of it is that it's going to have more story to it. So he's going to, on his search for a better life in this so-called Sausageville city, he's gonna accidentally uncover a plot of some characters that are some orc pigs that are putting together a machine to destroy the inhabitants of all the other sausages. And the start of the game is exactly that: is Audie walking with a bindle stick on the road and then bumping into a bunch of orcs that are carrying some machine parts. And those orcs get they beat Audie up, and Audie goes into the middle of the road. There's this carriage that passes by, and to avoid colliding with Audie, just does a quick turn and runs the orcs over, and that's when the story starts. That's why I say it's an accident. So now Audie has to help the poor guy that was with the carriage, has to take him to the doctor, has to grab the carriage and drive the carriage and do all the crazy driving with the carriage until he arrives to Sausageville. So he's going to slowly uncover this plot. On the first kind of approach, there was not a big story. It's just, he's pushed inside the machine. Now you have to find an exit to the machine, and just, it was more simpler in a way. but this one is more of a story, more of a plot behind it, but still with tons of action, because I like adventure games. But I know if it's it's because of my 45 years old. If the game gets too into the adventure side. Back in the day, I used to play, the Sierra games. I don't know if it's from your time or not, guys, but the Sierra, it was big a company back in the day of the adventure games like King's Quest, Space Quest, and all that. I played all of those, and they didn't have much action. They were just point and click games where you had to talk with this, talk with that, pick up this, exchange this for that. And quite frankly, today I couldn't play those games because my time is so limited. So I like to have the adventure side so that it has a story and I feel compelled by it. But I also like a lot of action. So I want to give that, like you said it very well, being an adventure game with action. That's exactly what I'm trying to achieve here with the game. Go ahead. Go ahead.
In terms of adventure, are you looking to add puzzles to the equation here?
Yes, exactly. It
What
starts.
kind of-
Yeah, there's a lot of ideas that I have popping on my mind. So initially, like the first, what I call level 0, it's already an introductory level. You already have to assemble parts of a carriage. So the carriage that the wagon that bumps these orcs gets all broken. So you have this time to assemble the carriage and make it work correctly. Then there will be different characters that you have to talk with, and they will give you side quests to do things. And these side quests will have puzzles in them, like solving some sort of 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 quests or anything to get that extra item that you can use somewhere else. I don't have them yet designed, like formally designed. I have some notes, some sketches, but I'm still exploring. But I really like the idea of there's a main quest and there's side quests that you have to do to get something that will help you along the main quest. And on those side quests, you will find these puzzles that you have to solve. Also, sometimes can be just the puzzle, sometimes can be the puzzle and some action until you reach the puzzle that you have to solve. And this is basically the main loop that I'm looking for. And I cannot go much deeper than this because we have the tendency, as you guys know, you spoke with a lot of people, and this is a pattern. We, as human beings, have the tendency to complicate, and we also, it's part of the maturity of building a game. It's trying to know how to cut a vertical slice of your game and not try to do everything, and or else you're going to get demotivated. So I'm learning as I go because my experience is not much. And if I look back and if you guys ask me what was probably the thing that you failed or did that you shouldn't be doing, maybe I shouldn't be doing a game with such a big scope like this for my first game. But now that I did it, I have to commit and I'm going full power on it. But you should always start a bit smaller. And that's what I'm trying to do. My tendency is I want to do this, I want to do that. And I talk with Zizi and she also, oh, that would be cool. But remember your time. So to answer your questions, yes, I want to have these puzzles, but I have to control myself not to put a lot of stuff there. It has to be simple in a way.
That is something that's very consistently come up in our conversations with over the years. Scope creep. The very therapy of that. And
so true.
I guess pushing that aside, I would like to shift focus to a aspect of the game development here we haven't talked about yet. And that is music. What are you looking for in terms of a score to Hottie here?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, right now I'm working. I've been in Twitter. There's I cannot even say how many professional, composers and musicians have contacted me, looking for, you need a professional to work with in terms of, the soundtracks, the effects, and all that. And I always say definitely. I and I have the capacity of creating music because I was a professional guitarist since my 15s to my 25. I have some music background, and I'm able to create, do the full indie dev thing. But I think, and I learned this from a guy that I really admire, which is the creator of Dark, the Vlad Marhulitz. You guys, I'm sure you know. He's a professional composer. He's a professional musician.
Mhm.
And he gave, one of his advices is, don't neglect on music, and don't work with stock sounds. Always, if you don't want to do it, always give that to a professional. So to answer your question, I want to work with a professional, and I'm very, very picky with sound and music. All my clips have sounds, music, have little aspects of special effects. Audie sliding a foot and you can hear, or Audie voice, or Audie's the sword, or I'm always looking for these special effects things. So in terms of score and effects, I'm really picky. I want to work with a professional, but at this stage of development, I don't think it makes much sense to involve a third person now. I'm working with just stock placeholder sounds, and then once I have those couple of playable levels and I have a good feedback or bad feedback from the public, that's the time I'm starting to, okay, we got up until this point. Imagine the feedback is good. It's time to start working with a professional musician, and so we can work on these two levels while we move forward with the remaining. So I really want to work with a professional there.
Like, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm sure from the sound of things that you're not going to have a problem finding a professional. Since,
Yeah.
they're apparently knocking on your door to join the project.
Yeah, and they're so nice. One of the things that I've came across is the game dev community that I didn't knew, and I started to know the people there, and they are so nice. The people are generally nice. People are supportive of others. People don't. If people see something, they like to go in and say, beautiful mechanic, beautiful game. I love your game. I love your stuff. I'm also a developer. And the same with the professional composers. The problem that I'm going to have is that I already have so many people that contacted me that I talk with in a regular basis that support me. I support them. I retweet their stuff. They retweet mine, and they're so nice. The problem I'm going to have is to decide between, without hurting anyone, but I think people must understand that work is work and friendship is friendship. There's a point in time where you have to say, okay, this is what I need. Show me what you got, and that moment in time, I'm going to have to be a little more, incisive of putting friendship aside, putting support aside, and thinking of who am I going to work with. So I'm to answer your question, yes, I have already a ton of people, but what I'm going to do is when the time comes, I'm going to, just do some sort of announcement of, commissions open here or something like that for a professional musician. And then I will ask people, to have a small meeting with them and explain the scope of the game. And if they can come up with some sort of a small demo or something that could impress me. And once I get impressed, that's who I will go with,
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
And let's see here. So when you get a vertical slice ready for the public, where do you expect to have this? Are you looking to put this on Itch, Steam, somewhere else?
Yes, basically it's going to be on Itch and Steam. I will start with Itch because I think Itch is a good learning platform to start marketing your game. Steam is the real deal. Steam is no joke. When you go to Steam, you gotta really know what you're doing because the display is immense. It's a lot of games, well-made games. You're competing with AAA games. You're competing with very good, not competing in a sense, right? But why should people play my game when they have tons of games that are much better than mine that are made by huge teams and huge spectacular artists and professionals. So when you go to Steam, you really got to know what you're doing. One of the main things that I have from friends, from other game dev friends, is okay, Ricardo, you're in this almost for a year, but you have no Steam page, man. Come on, I mean, put a freaking Steam page up with something in there. And I'm always saying I'm not doing that because
It sounds like you don't have enough to do that.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't want to go there with just a couple of screenshots and say, "Oh, yeah, and the sausage machine wishlist my game." When I go there, I want to have Zizi, our artist that I work with, draw me beautiful capsules. That I want to have a game that already has consistency. I want to have something that caught people, that catches people's eyes, and maybe they already know what the game is because they saw it on socials or things like that. And Steam, I believe when you go to Steam, I believe there's no space, there's not much space for you to fail there. When you go there and if you fail, it's already a bad sign. I think it's hard to get up from there. On itch, on the other hand, because it's more loose and open and it's more indie, it's more of an indie space. You have time probably to experiment and learn from your errors, and then just transition stronger to Steam. And this is kind of the natural evolution that I'm planning to do. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but at least it's what it makes sense in my mind. So those are the two main platforms: itch first, and then Steam.
Hey, and I guess my final question at this point is, are you looking to release this commercially, or will it be available for free if it develops into something substantial?
Yeah, great question. My thought was always to be that was something commercial and not free, but I will see as it evolves, because when you're charging for something, I always believe this: if I'm charging for my game, it really has to be a good product. Even if it costs $5, he has to be worth $5. So if I'm not proud of my game at the end, I say, the game is not maybe worth $5 for some, but the game has problems, the game has issues. I'm not proud of it, in a sense. I'm not gonna put it commercially so that people buy and say, hey, what the heck, I'm buying this. That doesn't make sense. But my intention is, of course, I want to be a commercial product. But if I think along the way that, by circumstances of life or anything like that, that I see that it's not viable, I'll absolutely make it free. I want to finish it. That's my my first goal. And if I finish it in a way that I'm not super proud of, I'm not gonna make it a commercial game, because that's not fair, in my opinion.
Certainly a magnanimous attitude to take towards things.
Thank you.
Right. See if my colleagues here have any questions for you on their own.
Thank you.
Galix?
I think you've explained most of the things I was going to ask.
Betty?
I think I'm good. I just think it's kind of funny that I was right, that you were, basically paying homage to Sausage Party.
Yeah, it's so funny, that movie.
All right then. So I want to thank you for being on the program this week, Ricardo.
My pleasure.
Talk. And if you out there enjoyed this interview, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell and do all the things you need to do to keep up with this program. And
Absolutely.
we wish you luck on Hottie, and maybe we'll have you on in a few years as this game develops.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You guys were super nice, and I'll make sure to pass on the word, and also to my other game dev colleagues if you guys want to bring them someday. That would be nice as well.
Yep.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Anyway, Betty, play us to the next segment. All right, welcome to the topic of discussion. This week we are talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection. This was announced at the State of Play last week. Bit unusually because, honestly, these retro packs and collections, I'm more used to being announced at, like, a Nintendo conference. Having it play, it was highlighted by PlayStation, but another reason why I hate these things being announced at platform-specific conferences is because 9 times out of 10, they're not platform-specific, and that is the case here. It's coming to everything with a pulse. PlayStation 5, 4, Xbox Series X, S, 1, Nintendo Switch, and PC Steam. I guess if you're Epic Game Store only, you're shit out of luck, but outside of that, it's coming to a platform near you. And I guess before we move on, I should mention, full disclosure, we do plan on having our good friend Stephen from Digital Eclipse on the program to talk about the developments of this in May. Granted, such things are subject to change. He did mention it might get delayed because, like for one example, this doesn't have an actual release date yet. It's just sometime in 2022. Also worth noting, this does have a higher price than usual when it comes to these kind of retro collections. $39.99, $40. But I can explain, once again, when we have the actual interview, we'll get into it, but I can surmise pretty deeply what's costing so much here. First of all, the license. This is an unusual retro collection in that it's a licensed retro collection. I believe we've mentioned this elsewhere, but these kind of games don't get re-releases too often because there's licensing to work through here. It isn't like one of Konami's Castlevania collections, for example, where Konami owns that, and if there's going to be some rights issues, it's probably going to be with the music. By the way, that is another fucking issue with this game collection because some of the games here used music from the series or from the goddamn Out of Your Shell tour. That was the Turtles Live tour. Believe me, but it is perhaps hard to convey how big the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were in the late 80s to early 90s. Granted, outside of probably the late 90s to early 2000s, the Turtles have never taken a break, except for that one between the end of the original series and the beginning of the 2003 series. And I guess now there isn't an active TMNT series in action, but I think that's going to change because of Paramount Plus. Anyway, so they've got that. They've got the music layered on that because from what I understand, this features Turtles in Time, both the the arcade game has the original music, which was not the case with the PlayStation 2 re-release in the Battle Nexus, I think it was, or no, it was the third one.
Something like that.
Yeah. Point is, the music had to be redone. The Ubisoft remake, Reshelled, had completely new music because, once again, music rights. So you got that, and this is comprehensive. Pretty like every Konami Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video game from back in the day is here. That does not include the Manhattan Missions, which was a obscure DOS game that was not developed by them. That was actually developed by the future EA Canada, Distinctive Games or Software, something like that. And it's also missing the 8-bit computer versions of the NES Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is fine and well enough because the DOS version is literally impossible because they adjusted the level design in a way where it made one jump actually impossible. There's more than a few videos on this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that extended to like the C64 version, but there's enough here, quite frankly, where because it's got the arcade game, it's got the NES version of the arcade game, it's got the NES game, it's got the Turtles in Time arcade game, it's got the Super NES version of that, it's got the Manhattan Project, it's got the NES, Super Nintendo, and Sega Genesis versions of the Tournament Fighters, which were all distinct games, which was a break from the norm. Because, usually by Super Nintendo era, you were getting a lot more games that were the same game across the platforms. Not here. You've got the Hyperstone Heist, which was the weird remix for the Sega Genesis. And you've got the 3 Game Boy Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles games. Fall of the Foot Clan, Back from the Sewers, and Radical Rescue. By the way, the hidden gem here, Radical Rescue. They actually made a Metroidvania Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game back in the day. Yeah, it's not widely known unless you had Nintendo Power, I think. That was kind of released 1993, 1994. That's about when the Turtle stuff was really on the wane because by that point we get into Power Rangers territory. And, Power Rangers pretty much ends, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reign at the top of the action figure world. It still sticks around.
Yeah.
Well, it's like people don't know how fucking long the 1987 series lasted. It lasted 10 goddamn years.
Yeah.
10 seasons. Yeah. I'm like, it went over 200 episodes. It's like the goddamn Gunsmoke of children's television programming, where you're kind of lucky to last a few seasons, let alone 10. That's how fucking big this thing was back then. And yeah, I will admit, this is my fucking childhood. Like, this franchise in particular was right there in my formative action figure years. I do remember having some Transformers and G.I. Joe. Like, Transformers, that was like at the tail end, season 3 when they were on fucking Cybertron. And the G.I. Joe stuff, that was in the fucking Deke era, the lamer era. But TMNT, yeah, had quite a few figures. And I enjoyed them quite a bit. And once again, Power Rangers, by the time they hit, I was like in middle school and, just kind of done with action figures.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people didn't graduate from the children's toys. I was, I put them away. So, anyway, point is, I was big into the Teenage Ninja Turtles, so I played quite a few of these games. Let's just see, just going down the list. NES version, yes. rented that. Didn't like it enough to pester my parents into owning it. Like, because I'm one of the people who hated like the Dan level. I know there are people who are good at it, but I was a kid. Kids aren't very good at video games, believe it or not.
Shocker.
Most of the time. Anyway, the arcade game, the local Chuck E. Cheese had that. Pumped a lot of fucking tokens into it. Like, the arcade game, likewise, rented that a lot. Manhattan Project, I did not have it. I had a friend who had it. Played that to completion. Turtles in Time Arcade, I did play that, but not a lot. Turtles in Time 4, Turtles 4, own that. Tournament Fighters for the Super NES, own that. Let's see, Fall of the Foot Cannon for the Game Boy, own that. And that's about it. By the time I had a Sega Genesis, I wasn't really into the Turtles. And I, like, if you own the NES version of Tournament Fighters, you were probably a collector or something, because this came out it came out in 1994. Last game by Konami. And it's like just kind of weird release for a few reasons. Like, first of all, it was a one-on-one fighting game released on the NES. I won't say the NES was bereft of such things, but it was like Karate Champ and Yi Are Kung Fu. This is like maybe the only, one-on-one fighter post Street Fighter 2 that the NES got. Something that we would recognize as a modern fighter that was codified by Street Fighter 2. And believe me, Tournament Fighters is very codified by Street Fighter 2. At least the Super NES version was. So in this package, it's got all of this, and it's got all of the versions of this. It's gonna have all of the Japanese versions, which, by the way, is not for every game, because according to the website here, there were no Japanese versions for the arcade version of Turtles in Time and the NES version of Tournament Fighters, which should quash some fears, because people were getting upset that the Japanese version of the Super NES version of Tournament Fighters wasn't going to be in here. And that's actually important, because they did some changes. They did some rebalancing, I believe, and also this has more cleavage. I'm not joking about this.
Just on the one original, but based on a character from the movie Ninja Girl character.
I think it's her. I'm like, that is Konami's character, and I guess if they wanted to, they could do something with her outside of the Turtles, but it's just the character. It's like Rom the Space Knights. Hasbro may own that character, but Marvel owns the everything else in that comic book series. Also worth note that 4 games will have online functionality. The arcade Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, the arcade version of Turtles in Time, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist, and the Super Nintendo version of Tournament Fighters. The head scratcher here is Hyperstone Heist. I don't know how they landed on this one. Now, apparently they prioritized the arcade version of Turtles in Time over Super NES because that has 4-player co-op. But it's like the Hyperstone Heist is not exactly an original game. It's this, seriously, it's this weird remix of the arcade game, some Turtles in Time, and it's even got some original content, like this one actually feats Tatsu from the first movie as a fightable boss. The only time he shows up in these Turtles games. And I guess that's another thing to talk about in terms of the characters. Most of the time, it's the 1987 characters showing up in these. The core cast of characters are going to be the four Turtles, Master Splinter, April O'Neil, and antagonist, the Shredder, Krang, and Bebop and Rocksteady. That's your core cast. But that is not to say that it is always going to be either the core cast or supporting characters, like the arcade game features Baxter Stockman, the 1987 specifically, the Caucasian Baxter Stockman and the Fly Baxter Stockman, or that's the one that has
that toy. The arms and wings broke off.
Yeah, it sounds about right. Like, I think mine was chewed by my brother. He did that a few times. Like he chomped down on some fucking Darkwing figure. Still pissed off about. Well, I would be if that was still a thing I would be pissed off about. Anyway, and it has like General Trag and fucking Sergeant Bulgadier or something like that. The Rock Warriors and Roadkill Rodneys. Like that's probably like the Turtles in Time game has like Slash and Metalhead, some more obscure characters. The Leatherhead. Once again, they're cartoon incarnations. But once we get to like tournament fighters, that's when the not necessarily for the 1987 characters start piling in, because the tournament fighters have a lot of characters that were either never in the 1987 series or were like featured for an episode. Like the Super NES version of Tournament Fighters has Wingnut and Screw Loose. They were in one episode of the series. By the way, completely against their usual personality, which is allies to the Turtles. They're actually enemies in this one. They've taken over a military academy in order to train kids to take over the world. The Turtles is a fucking weird series. We could probably spend a couple hours on that subject, but
yeah, they had a lot of one-shot characters in that series. The better to make toys of, and the toy lore didn't even necessarily match the series lore.
Well, here's the thing: a lot of these characters weren't from necessarily the series; they were from the comics series, the alternate comic series, like Wingnut and Screw Loose. They originated in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures, which is the Archie comic series, not the original series. Yeah, even by the fucking early 90s, there was about 4 continuities you had to pay attention to. If you were paying attention, you were probably just paying attention to like the cartoon. Or if you were a kid, you were probably reading the Archie comic series. You probably shouldn't have been a kid and reading the original comic book series. That was actually not for kids. That was very much not for kids. Oh God. Because this wasn't meant as a toyetic franchise for kids. This started out as a fucking one-shot to take the piss out of Frank Miller, which I can always support. Anyway. Or like Ray Fillet. He's another character from the Adventures continuity who also made it into the cartoon series for an episode. But on the other hand, the Super NES version, it's a tongue twister, featured the likes of War and Armagon, major antagonist from the Adventures series that did not appear in the cartoon series, to my knowledge. I mean, it's possible that they could have, but looking it up, apparently Armagon didn't appear in the cartoons a cartoon series until the 2012 series. And yeah, and this thing stops at Turtles Tournament Fighters. So that means they will not include the 2003 TMNT Game Boy Advance game. It's all from the classic series and the classic era. When you hit the fucking early 2000s, that's the reboot for kids series. That's the god awful fucking PlayStation 2 versions. And it's also, the Game Boy Advance Teenage Ninja Turtles game. That's actually solid stuff. Both of them. I would include the 2007 Teenage Ninja Turtles game based off of the movie, which was done by Ubisoft. Right. So I think that's a comprehensive coverage of what's going on with this package. As far as online support for more of the games, possibility after the fact, after launch, I don't know. We'll ask, but I'm looking forward to talking to Digital Eclipse about this, and I'm looking forward to see this released. So I'm not sure if you guys are looking as forward to this, because I don't know what. Well, your experience with the Turtles is probably a bit more limited than mine.
Yeah, I wasn't really super into the Turtles growing up.
I kind of was, but my parents didn't let me watch the cartoons too much because I got hyperactive. But I did have quite a collection of toys.
Yeah, the Turtles cartoon I watched religiously. Like,
but not too surprising because I'm in the older age bracket than Petty Fan is. So
yeah. So that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. So the week ahead, just kind of a few things going on here. Anyway, so coming up on the Sunday reviews, we'll be having reviews of Hidden Deep. Oh, no, sorry. That's an Impressions vid. I need to relabel that because that is in early access. It's impressively in early access, but it's definitely got a few things that demarcate it as early access. Petty will be reviewing Impossible. Galax will be reviewing Iron Commando, Kosetsu no Senshi. And I'll be reviewing Dear Esther Landmark Edition. And there's no Friday show because, once again, Petty Fan is going to the dentist that day. And we do have a new installment of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening after this broadcast in about 20 minutes. So I'll see you there. And until then, I shall wish you good gaming.